The planet is heating up.
The oceans are becoming filled with plastic.
Change starts now. Change starts now.
We're on a countdown
To zero waste. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the Zero Waste Countdown Podcast. Here's your host, Laura Nash.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zero Waste Countdown podcast and radio show. It's been a while since our last episode, so I'm so excited to bring you a new one. This one is featuring Justen Garrity with Veteran Compost. Justen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm excited to talk about two things that I'm very passionate about. So I am a veteran as well, as you are as well, Justen. So that's pretty cool to talk about this. And of course, composting is one of the best things you can do for the environment. It's such a good thing. And I want to hear all about your company and what got you into it and that sort of thing. So when did you start Veteran Compost? Has this been going on for a while?
Sometimes it feels like a long time, and sometimes it feels like we just got started. So I don't know. It depends on the day. But I started back in 2010. So we just passed our 10-year anniversary. So when I started, it was just me. It was the me show and one-person operation. And now we have roughly 25 employees here working at 2 different locations.
That's awesome. And congratulations on your 10-year anniversary. That's amazing.
Yeah, we were going to have a big blowout party and then COVID happened. So we'll put it off till next year.
Yeah, because for sure it will happen next year and all this COVID stuff will be long gone next year. I'm sure of it.
That's keep hope alive. I'm with you. The finish line is in sight.
I'm just going to keep saying it.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. And are you in Washington, D.C.?
So we have 2 facilities. The one that I work at day to day is in Aberdeen, Maryland, which is just north of Baltimore. And then we have another facility that's smaller, but operates in Alexandria, Virginia, which is just outside the district. So our kind of area is the Baltimore, Annapolis, Washington kind of metro area.
Wow. Okay, cool. And so let's find out about the process. So how do you collect the compost and how did you kind of make it work? Because I imagine it's a bit of a dirty job, right?
Oh, it's a really dirty job. So this is this is not for everyone. That's for sure. We always have consistent hiring challenges because people just don't want to do this kind of work. So the way that our business kind of works or our compost process is we collect food scraps from homes and offices and businesses, everything from a little bin on someone's doorstep in Northern Virginia all the way up to tractor trailer quantities of food that needs to be disposed of and everything in between. So we have trucks and vans that go out on regularly scheduled routes and pick up food scraps from people's homes and offices and businesses, supermarkets, restaurants, schools, hospitals, things like that. And then we also have material that's brought to us. So it may be dumpster quantities of material, like we get hops from breweries, we get lettuce from food distribution centers that is spoiled, things like that are also brought to us via dumpster load. And then all that material is received at our facilities, and we take the food scraps and we mix it with wood chips, which is our other main material that comes from tree services that gives them an opportunity a place to drop it. So we mix the wood chips and food scraps together, put that in a large pile with pipes that are inserted into it. And those pipes are connected to electric blowers that are on timers. And so we blow air into the pile periodically around the clock. And that helps provide oxygen that helps keep all the microbes happy, all the bacteria and fungi that are in there. And they allow us to break everything down really quickly. So in your backyard, it may take 6 months, a year to break down your leaves. In our system, we can go 90 days from food waste coming in to finished compost going out. So it's a pretty quick process, helps us prevent any odors or issues like that and produce a pretty consistent, high quality product.
That's awesome. Yeah, if you've ever tried composting at home and didn't have enough oxygen getting into the compost, you might have noticed that it really starts to smell, right? So I get the injecting air part to it. And then is that the windrow system or is this kind of a different system?
So our method is called the aerated static pile method. So if you Google that and you're interested in composting, It's interesting. There are really high price systems out there, multi-million dollar systems, with all kinds of bells and whistles. And I don't have that kind of money. So we kind of worked from the other end of, okay, we know we want to provide aeration. How do we do it at a low cost? And so we worked with an engineering firm that did help us with some of the design work. And then, when I started, like I said, just myself. So started really small with small piles and learned a lot of lessons that, now that we have more material and larger system, it's good to have those experiences under your belt. Cause if you make a mistake at this scale, it'd be pretty odorous, like you said, or could be a problem. So, now at this point, it's really an interesting kind of business because part of it is a collection business, like a waste business where we're collecting material. Part of it's agricultural because we're here at farms and we're producing soils. And part of it's like really manufacturing because we have this process and we're trying to optimize a process to deliver a consistent high quality product on a timeline. So it's a weird blend of kind of a different sectors of business if you think about it.
Yeah. And what are the wood chips for?
So when you're composting, in your backyard and at our system scale, you need to have greens, which are materials that are typically high in moisture and high in nitrogen. So if you think about food scraps, grass clippings, coffee grounds, things like that, and those are balanced out with browns, which are carbonous materials that help provide both carbon and porosity, kind of bulk up the pile. Because if you just had a big old pile of food waste, it'd be really mucky. There'd be no airflow. It would be really too high in moisture. And so when we add things like wood chips or leaves, you could use sawdust. Some people use manure with bedding. That helps provide carbon. That helps kind of get the right moisture level, and then also bulk up the pile and provide porosity so that there's enough space in the pile for air to flow. So some people use yard debris or other materials. In our facilities, we use just wood chips. We don't handle any yard debris. Our goal is to be chemical free. And so by just using wood chips, we try to avoid any issues with pesticides, herbicides, things like that you might find in grass clippings and yard debris, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I never thought about that. I don't know if you know about PFAS, but sometimes I worry about those paper containers because years ago I probably would have put one of those paper food containers into my compost thinking, "Oh, it's just paper." But now that I know it's typically coated in PFAS, I don't want to contaminate my compost because I try and keep it like as quality as I can. And we had someone else who worm farms. So she goes around Toronto and collects like coffee grounds and different like food scraps from offices. Well, she used to. I think she got hit really hard with COVID, which is unfortunate.
Oh, no.
But paper, I remember her saying paper was like a very important part of the worm's diet, which I guess is a bit different than the aeration and providing different things that you're saying. But that makes me feel better because I have a lot of straw going into my home compost now. So I think maybe that would be good for it because I was kind of worried about putting it in there.
Yes, straw is a great material. So that'd be like your brown type material. And the great thing about straw is it does decompose pretty quickly. So if you think about a wood chip,
Oh,
wood
good.
chips take a long time to break down. Straw, a lot quicker.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I've been looking at it pile up thinking, I don't know if this is going to go away anytime soon.
Oh yeah, you're good.
And also with the chicken manure, right? It's going to be really high in nitrogen. But yeah, good stuff. So what is like the finished product for? So I saw on your website that you can sign up. So if somebody's in this area, so like Maryland, Baltimore area, right? You can kind of sign up for this service and then you can get a bag or two back each year. Is that right? Of finished product?
Our residential customers that participate in that program, they get a bag of finished compost back twice a year in the spring and the fall, to help them with their gardening. And then some folks, maybe you live in a condo and you don't have a backyard, they can always donate it to community gardens or farms that we work with. So we have some outlets for that where they can kind of donate their share. But the big part of our business is the product sales. So we don't make a lot of money on the collection. We mostly do it because we need the raw materials for our process. And so the products are really where we earn our living. And so we produce, finished compost. We make topsoil, potting mix, seed starter mixes, super soil, biochar, all kinds of different blends with that compost worm castings, things like that we then sell either bagged or bulk to farmers and homeowners and gardeners, landscapers, stuff like that. So that's really the big part of our business is the product side. So after we make the stuff is selling it to folks who are ready to grow new stuff in it.
That's amazing. I don't know if you've ever heard of terra preta in the Amazon jungle.
Yeah. Yeah. So we do some biochar stuff, which is kind of a little bit similar to that with the biochar blends, yeah, that is like the gold standard for soils there. The Amazon, the pictures are pretty cool when they show them online.
Yeah, so if you're listening, you can Google terra preta Amazon soil, and it's man-made soil that was made like thousands of years ago, and it was made so well, like kind of what Justin's doing here, right? With food scraps and adding in, different types of debris and I guess the stuff that you call the brown stuff, right? And it's just like the most amazing soil. And there's even a conspiracy kind of theory that they think maybe the Amazon is even man-made, but I don't know. That's a little crazy, I think, to think about that. But it's kind of fun to think about, that humans can have a good part to play in keeping the world healthy and making really good soil. I think humans are really good at making good soil if only we would take the time to separate it at home, or like you said, you collect from schools and hospitals, I think. Was that right?
Right. Yeah. Healthcare is probably our largest single sector. Healthcare and grocery is probably the largest sources of our material. So you think about hospitals, lawn care facilities, anything that has like a commercial kitchen is a great
Mhm.
opportunity for us to really collect a lot of material on a consistent basis.
That's so amazing. I wonder about the grocery stores. I like if someone's taking it out of the package. So before I've given this example of, let's say some cookies expire, are the grocery store people going to, pay one of their workers to take the time to take all the cookies out and recycle the container or whatever you do, right? Or do you just landfill the cookies because no one's going to like separate all the packaging and stuff?
You
Do
probably
you
don't
happen
want
to
to. You
know
don't want to
how
know
they
the
do?
answer to that question. It would break everybody's heart.
Oh no. But you are getting some from grocery stores, which means that some of it is getting composted, which is good news,
We are. So
right?
we're getting the grocery stores. I mean, they're all part of a number of different industry initiatives to really focus on waste. Because if you think about it, if they can find any sort of use that isn't going to the landfill, it's of benefit to them financially and as a business. So like, for example, like my supermarket, like I shop at Giant where I live in Pennsylvania, they have like a fridge at the front of the store. And it's this like, and it's called Flash Foods. And there's an app now, and you can, when they have things that are just about to expire, they bring it to the front of the store and you can see it on your app and you can buy it at like a huge discount. So like stuff like that, I think grocery stores are starting to smarten up. I know in Europe, it's really famous. There's a grocery chain that does like a happy hour, like the last hour of the night, all this stuff is at a discount. So a lot of that we're starting to see in food, which is great because it should end up on someone's plate if it can. And then the composting part, we're kind of lower down the hierarchy of things, but we are seeing more grocery stores take the time to really address it. But like the depackaging thing, it is a challenge of who's going to do the depackaging. At our end, we don't have the machinery. Our depackaging is by hand. So a lot of times people don't want to pay, our labor cost for the depackaging. So a lot of that unfortunately does go currently to landfills.
Yeah, it reminds me of Tiger King, that one scene where the Walmart truck comes. I don't know if you're listening
Yeah.
and seen that scene, and like these guys are just in the back of the truck opening packs of bologna and like ham
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh my gosh, it's like more plastic than food, and it's just going to take them hours to open up all these packs and give them to the tigers.
There
It's
are
crazy.
machines that are out there. So if you like, once again, if people want to get on a Google or YouTube rabbit hole for depackaging machines, there are systems that are out there. And like, I think if you fast forward a few years, you're going to see kind of regional setups where there are machines where they back up whole tractor trailers and to the depackaging machine and separate all that stuff. Unfortunately, they're just really, really expensive machines. And so for us as a small business, it's just kind of out of the ballpark of what we could afford at this time. But I think it's coming.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna see that in our lifetime. We're gonna see huge shifts in how all that stuff's treated.
good. Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure that you get some plastic sometimes in the compost? Is that a big issue, or like not very much? Are people pretty good about keeping that stuff out?
That it's one of our bigger challenges because, once again, like the products are where we earn our living and no one wants to see plastic or trash in the finished product. I mean, that would negatively affect our ability to sell it. So we got to keep the trash out of there. But, I think generally our customers do really well. So if you're a residential customer, you're paying for our service. And so you're probably inclined to do the right thing. So we don't see a lot of trash in that material. On some of our commercial stuff, we do see trash at very low levels. So let's say we're at, 1%, or say people are getting it right 99% of the time. Well, if we're doing, 100 tons a week, that's still 1 ton of trash. And a lot of it, it's not bricks. It's little pieces of plastic, right? It's plastic wrap, it's plastic bags. A lot of it's what we call soft plastics, right? It's not necessarily bottles and cans. And so, like I said, we're very low tech. It's $9 blue gloves and $20 rubber boots. And the guys, myself included, are in there trying to pick through out any of the trash at several different points in the process. So it's a constant struggle because once it comes to our facilities, we own it for life, right? So we now need to either compost it or recycle it if it's a bottle or can, or we need to dispose of it if it's trash. So we need to figure out what to do with it because we now own it for life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was a farm. I saw this on your website. Is one of the facilities on the farm?
So all of our facilities are on farm properties. So like our facility in Aberdeen, we're a 30-acre farm. We use about 3 or 4 acres for the composting. And we actually have 2 different farmers who farm in the fields to grow food. And we're actually in the process of putting up a 4,000 square foot hoop house to be able to grow year round here. And then at our other facility in Virginia, we lease some space on a larger farm property. And so our landlord or our partner, they grow food, or the Arcadia. If you look up Arcadia in Alexandria, Virginia, they grow food. They teach all kinds of farming programs. And then the food that they grow goes to underserved areas in DC. So they actually do a mobile market where they go to food deserts and sell that produce at a reduced cost to folks in the city. So it's like pretty cool to see. And a lot of their farmer training program is they take military veterans and train them on farming as a follow-up career to their military service. So it's kind of cool to see, at both of our sites that, our compost is going right back in the ground to grow stuff, and people are learning and taking that knowledge out to start new farms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and being a veteran, when you're in war and stuff, it's not a job that can transfer easily over to some jobs, but there's so many skills and qualities, I think, in a veteran because they've learned so much and they've usually been through a lot and they're quite capable and can show up on time and stuff like that. So why do you focus on veterans? Because I believe you focus on hiring them, right?
I do. So the way this all started for me is I went to college, and the day I graduated college, I raised my right hand and was sworn in the Army, and off I went. And so I did. I was a combat engineer officer on active duty for 5 years, and then switched over to the National Guard for another 5 years. So when I came home from the Army, I had trouble finding a job. I mean, I literally couldn't find a job. No one wanted to hire me. And so I found myself unemployed. So I had to find something to do. And so I know what that feels like. I mean, you talk about low points in life. That was a low point in life for me. And so, at this point, try to send the elevator back down and help other people out. And so whenever possible, we kind of go as much as we can out of our way to hire veterans and family members of veterans, because I think that they need help, maybe sometimes getting back on track. And then, it benefits us as an employer because generally they tend to be better than the normal population as employees with the intangibles, like you mentioned, showing up on time, work ethic, just being able to accomplish missions and be adaptive, kind of the qualities that you don't necessarily translate to a resume well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service. That's really nice that you're doing that. It sounds like you're very compassionate. So you're compassionate about people, but how did you become compassionate about the environment? I mean, I'm assuming that you are, because this is like a huge part, I think, of keeping our environment clean, because it reduces landfill so much.
Yeah. So when I was like looking at businesses to start, I knew I wanted to do something purposeful. Like the one thing I liked about the military is there was always a mission and a purpose. So when I looked at like sustainable businesses and opportunities, waste kind of stuck out to me. And 2/3 of what's in the back of every trash truck in America is compostable. It's food waste, it's untreated wood waste, it's yard debris or paper
Mm.
waste. So, it just seemed like there was all this material and throwing it out seemed like a huge environmental waste. And it also seemed like a financial waste, and it seemed like a good business opportunity. And so I had read a book by Gary Hirschberg, who was the guy who started Stonyfield Yogurts. And it's all about kind of using business and capitalism to really accomplish environmental goals. And so that's kind of my goal was if I got into composting and I was driving a nice car or truck, other people would see that and say, well, shoot, I ought to get into recycling and composting because, Justin's driving a pretty sweet car or truck over there. And so that's
Nice.
kind of been my goal. So like I do really like the planet. I like the outdoors. I have kids and I want the world to be better for them and so that they can enjoy it. And I think, climate change is alarming, but I'm not a full,
Mhm.
like I always warn people, I eat steak and I drive an F-150. So I'm not environmental enough for some people. So I guess it's, I go to like waste conventions and the trash people think I'm like way out there. And then I go to like a clean water event and I'm like, you know, not on the good list. So it just depends on what shade of
Yeah.
green you subscribe to. There's a lot of green on green crime. We need to stop it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and hatred, just
Yeah.
everybody understand we're all doing what we can, and for each person, it's different what we can do and what fits into our life, right? But
Yeah.
I had someone once be like, "Laura, you can't be an environmentalist because you drive a truck." And that's when I was in the military, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like 5 days a week, I ride my bike to the base, 18 kilometers there and back." And then I have my truck for weekends so that I can go up. I was living on Vancouver Island, so amazing camping and kayaking and surfing and skiing in the winter. Like it's just a mecca for outdoors. So I was like, I do what I can to save the environment, but then I also enjoy it.
No, like environmentalists eat their own, so we need to knock it off. So like we have a compost facility we're trying to build in between Annapolis and DC, and it's an opportunity to compost a lot of material. The site I've never received any grants. This is the first grant I ever got. It's from the Department of
Wow.
Agriculture to teach farmers how to compost. And the idea is if we could show farmers how to compost manure, then they would compost instead of doing other things that are fouling up the water in our region. And that project
Totally.
has been held up for 5 years by environmentalists. So it's like, if you guys let me build
Why?
it, like in the bigger picture, it's good for society. But like I
Why?
said, it's
Why is it being held up?
some people think that we're building on top of a former landfill. So it is a closed landfill. So this used to be a
Mhm.
landfill built in the 90s. It's a property that's unwanted by anybody. And so we're leasing it to build this site. So it seems like a great opportunity to really turn a brownfield into something where we could train people, provide employment, process materials and create soils. And someone has decided that I'm negatively affected, that they see it as a bird habitat, not as an abandoned landfill. And so they have
Oh.
kind of thrown down a lot of roadblocks. So
Oh my gosh, the birds would love a compost, wouldn't they?
I,
Wouldn't birds
I
like
don't
that?
know. It's just like we have, yeah, I mean, our site here in Aberdeen, we have barn swallows, we have eagles, we have all kinds of cool stuff. But yeah, I love the planet. It's just, like I said, sometimes I'm not green enough for folks, but I get
Yeah, no, I do too. And I try to stick up for people who drive trucks, not only because I drive one, but because because we can't really do what we're doing here in North America. I know Europe has less trucks, but I think they're built a little more denser than we are. But in Canada, we live miles out of town and our towns are far apart and all this stuff. So we're still building, right? There's lots of people just building, building, building. And that's what you're doing. You're building a compost facility and trying to make the world a little bit better, right? Composting is just huge for me. And on my zero waste countdown that I did, I'm not so good now in COVID, I'll be honest. That sucks. But
it.
uh, the composting is what really did it for me because if you separate your compost out of your garbage, you can leave your garbage piling up for like months and it won't stink.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put anything gross in your garbage, like wet or anything food, that's when you get the smell problems. That's when you need to use a plastic bag. Because I don't use a plastic bag. I just have an insert into the garbage can, and it's very, very slow filling up. And then I'll take it out to the garbage. But yeah, composting I think was the biggest thing, and yeah.
No,
So
that's
I
awesome. I mean, you
just
think like in some areas they call it wet waste, and once again, this is all stuff that 100 years ago was commonplace, that people would have a slop bucket
right.
or a wet waste bucket, and the pig guy would come and pick it up, and that's what my
Big
great
guy.
grandmother did. So all we're doing is essentially
Oh wow.
coming back to the way things were 100 years ago in cities. When there was a home for everything, there was a rag man and a scrap guy and a pig guy and all that stuff, right? So
Yeah, I think that's where some European names come from. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I don't know. Carpenter is like a very famous last name,
yeah,
like Smith,
yeah.
or those kind of things. I think they come from like the trades, which is, I guess, doesn't have anything to do with the show, but um, but I just love history actually, and again with the Amazon, like I think these people were doing it right thousands and thousands of years ago, and sometimes I think we're getting like almost less smart as the generations go on, because yeah, when you look at the Amazonians and what they were doing with that soil and building it, it's pretty amazing. And then even like a few hundred years ago with farming techniques, everything was just produced internally on the farm, really, because you use the animal poop as fertilizer and you'd use your food scraps for compost and that sort of thing and make your good soil, and ashes. So everybody would have heated their home with wood, and then the hardwood ashes are really good for the garden too. That's what we use. And then the bone meal, which is, I'm not sure how to make it. I buy that. But
It's a lot of
yeah,
work. So I wouldn't, yeah, we compost a lot of the bones and stuff here. That's easier than trying to make the bone meal out of it.
that would be kind of a gross job, I think, to do that part, certainly. So you can accept like dairy and meat products as well?
So what makes kind of our process different than say your backyard? If you have ever taken a backyard compost class or watched a video, there's usually a list of things you don't want to put in your backyard. And meats and oils and dairy products are probably high up there because they had potential odors and also attract a lot of vectors. So the raccoons and mice and flies are going to come out for those items. And in our system,
Vectors.
what's that?
Vectors is an interesting name. I just call them critters.
Yeah, it's like the
Vectors. Yeah.
politically correct name in like facility maintenance or whatever you want to call it for pests. But
Yeah.
we know our piles that are at 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 55 degrees Celsius, probably within 72 hours of building them, and so they get really, really hot. And we, on the outside of our pile, we cover with several inches of old compost, and so it kind of insulates everything, and so odors can't really seep out because it scrubs the odors, and then it also helps to act as a blanket. So if you were a fox or a bird and you started to dig into the pile before you ever got to any of the good stuff, your paws would be too hot, and so it allows us to keep anybody from digging into it or being attracted to it. And then just the heat itself breaks everything down. And so we do a ton of, because we're in Maryland on the Chesapeake Bay, we do a ton of seafood. So crabs, oysters, things like that, fish. And then this time of year, with it being the holiday season, not uncommon to see a lot of poultry and ham waste and things like that coming through here. We do a lot of meat from our supermarkets and homeowners and stuff like that. Yeah, turkey bones, ham bones, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, wow. It's crazy to see people's eating patterns like through their food waste, which archaeologists have been doing for a long time, right? That's how you can tell a lot about a culture, by digging through their waste.
Yeah, no, it definitely changes throughout the year here, and there's certain seasons for this or that, and it is kind of interesting to watch what we get in the bins. You can kind of we play detective every now and again as we kind of check stuff out.
That is pretty neat. So, okay, tell us the area again. I know we named some of the cities, but can you just tell us the area that this is available and how people can sign up if they're in that area?
Sure. So we are anywhere from really Philadelphia to Northern Virginia for our product sales, delivery, and then our services in that area as well. And we do ship some of our products if people ever, need them. And then we also put out a lot of social media just in general about gardening and stuff like that. We have a soil scientist on our staff. So we, if you follow us online, if for no other reason than to get some garden advice and things like that, tips and tricks. But you can look up Veteran Compost if you Google us, or facebook.com/Veteran Compost, or on YouTube and Instagram as well. And like I said, we try to just put out lots of information about gardening and composting and helping people out so they can be successful with home gardening and farming and stuff like that.
Awesome. Sounds good. Cool. Well, this has been great. So I'm really happy to talk to you today about this. So thank you for the work that you're doing, not only for the environment, but to help out, your brothers and sisters that are looking for a job. And I think that this is wonderful. So thank you, Justen.
No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the conversation.
Cool. That's Justen Garrity from Veteran Compost.
Change starts now.
This is the Zero Waste Countdown Podcast.